Hi there, welcome to Meet the Ministers. My guest on the program this evening is Andrew Powell. Andrew is the Shadow Minister for the Environment and a member for Glasshouse. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Why did you choose a career in politics at this stage in your life? We'll get straight into it.
Why not? Look, I think in the end, I have been a bureaucrat, a public servant for all of my career, 12 years, both at Commonwealth and state level. And I think increasingly over the last 8 years at the state level, whilst I saw a lot of good things, I saw a lot of frustrating things too. And so I initially joined the party on the basis that I wanted to implement some change. Ideally saw that through helping the party prepare policies around some of the areas that I'd had experience in. And I guess if you told me that I was going to end up an MP or at least a pre-selected candidate to become an MP within 2.5 years of joining the party, I would have laughed at you. But a number of coincidences fell my way, and I thought I'd have a crack at pre-selection. There was a strong candidate that I thought would win. I ended up beating him, wound up candidate in a seat where the sitting member then chose to contest a different seat, and the swing was on, and I wound up an MP. I guess really what I was looking at was I'm not one of those people that can sit outside and throw stones. I've got to get in there and have a crack. And to me, this is the best way to do it.
Fair to say that there's a portion of the public service who would like things just to stay the way they are, a portion that finds it very frustrating and needs to move on, and a portion that kind of puts up with it.
I think there are the two kinds. I think there's those that are just status quo. It is, there's opportunities there to just ride the moment and do what you have to do from day in, day out. But I think, like in any job, there's people who are looking for challenges. And I think sometimes those challenges aren't there. Look, machinery of government changes, for one thing, are constant blights on the ability of the public service to do their job. The amount of money and time and energy that goes into changing the names of departments and merging and splitting apart and putting them back together again, and the cycles that go with that. There's a lot of inefficiency in that, and it's certainly one of the frustrations that I was feeling. Stayed in the same unit but moved from 3 to 4 different departments within the time that I was in it. So there are people who genuinely want to make a difference. There are a lot of public servants who genuinely want to make a difference and make Queensland or Australia a better place, but often feel stymied in being able to do so.
What was your actual position within?
So I've had a range of positions across 12 years. In the last 4 years with the Department of Child Safety, it was around a unit called Planning and Partnership. One of the things that came out of the review into child protection in Queensland was that the department itself, the government itself, had very bad relationships with the broader child protection sector, whether that was the non-government sector, with foster carers, with Queensland Health, with police, and so on. It wasn't a functioning sector. And so one of the outcomes of the review was to invest in staff in each region and then in Brisbane to try and improve how the sector played together to get better outcomes for kids. So if you're a kid in care, you want to know that the school's going to be responsive to the particular needs that you have, not having parents, being in a foster home, having particular behavioural issues, or having been brought up in a way that meant that when you got into a school setting, that setting was quite challenging. If you have the Education Department and the Department of Child Safety at loggerheads, then it's not very conducive to you getting the best outcomes through your education. So my job was to facilitate those relationships across the sector.
You've got a large young family, 5 kids. That sort of colour the way you looked at your time in that particular job, or the way you looked at it, or even the way you looked at your own family?
Yeah, I guess I was recruited into child safety. If you'd said to me, you're going to have 4 years in the Department of Child Safety, I wouldn't have agreed with you. And I guess it was that part of life that a lot of us aren't aware is really out there. At the time that I started, my eldest son was 4, and one of my first meetings was with a sexual counselling service for young children who'd been abused, and the manager started sharing with me some of her experiences as a counsellor, and was talking about 4-year-olds who were displaying certain behaviours, and I'm thinking my eldest 4-year-old son being abused in a way that he would show that kind of behaviour in public. It was quite devastating. So I quickly felt an empathy for what I was doing, and the more I worked in it, the more I wanted to make a difference again. And really that gave you the impetus to get out there and get this sector playing nicely so that the outcome for the kids was the best.
You still carry that mindset with you now?
Most certainly, yeah. Look, it's challenging when you have a portfolio as a shadow opposition spokesperson. You come very myopic and you get focused on that, but it doesn't mean that you don't still have passions in certain areas, and child safety is one of those.
Growing up, you seem to move around a lot. Brisbane, Rockhampton, Melbourne, Sydney, before settling north of Brisbane. What do you remember about your early childhood? Was it did you enjoy that aspect of it, moving around?
I did. Some of my siblings didn't.
Because it can be challenging. Reigniting friendships or moving on to trying to establish new friendships, it can be hard for young kids.
Look, like a lot of politicians, I'm a people person. I love meeting people and making new friends, and so I think that's part of what I became from having lived in something like 30 houses in 30 years. You just, not all of those were changes of location, they were just changes within the location, but you quickly picked yourself up, made friends and got on with life. And I think that certainly put me in good stead in this role. I've made some fantastic friends throughout those locations, but I probably only have one or two that I really keep in contact with. I actually think it gives you an appreciation as a Queenslander of some of the good things that are occurring in other states and some of the bad things that are occurring in other states.
Yeah, I think a great advantage to be able to have that more rounded experience of where you live.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, Queenslander parents, you're going to wind up here, and why wouldn't you? It's the best place in the country, and it's certainly got a lot to offer a family and a lot to offer in terms of economy and everything like that.
So what was it that your parents were doing that caused this desire or need to keep moving?
I'm not real sure, and I guess that's a conversation I still haven't had with my parents. I don't think Mum was real keen on all the moves all the time. I think Dad was sort of challenging himself and finding a niche. As a man, I can appreciate what he was going through there. When you work to provide, which is what my father did, he was very much that provide and protect type role. You want to know that what you're doing for 40, 50, 60 hours a week is actually meaningful and gives you some reward. And I think Dad initially struggled to find that. He'd trained as an engineer, started working with Postmaster General, then wound up teaching a bit in a TAFE setting around that, but then slipped into a role with World Vision. And I think the last two main changes from Melbourne, where he was with World Vision Australia, to World Vision International in Sydney, was that time ended, and they decided to come back to Queensland as I was in grade 10. And ever since, he's been in the aged care sector, as has my mum. So they've settled down a bit, and but they left it until my grade 10 to do so.
Well, it can be the great challenge for men of a certain age to try and find meaning in life other than working to support the family, because even though there's such a feel of accomplishment with that, there can also be an element of emptiness and what else is there for you.
Yeah, and again, I think I'm experiencing that. This career that I have now, this job that I have now, is probably the best that I could ever dream for. That is so rewarding, and every day is a new challenge. Every day brings you something exciting and something to challenge you in a way that you probably hadn't challenged before. So I can understand what Dad was probably looking for. And I'm 38, and I probably found it. Dad probably found it around the same age, and so I can understand why he moved around a bit.
Okay. You're watching Meet the Ministers, and we'll be back after the break.